It's time to see if I remember how to film a YouTube video. Hi, if you've never been here before, my name is Emma, aka midsummerknits, and I post videos about knitting and fiber arts content. When I say I post videos, I mean that quite lightly because I haven't posted a YouTube video in about a year. So let's talk about the elephant in the room. At least if you are a return subscriber of mine, then you've probably been wondering where I've been. It's possible you haven't been wondering that. I'm probably being very self-centered by assuming that you've been wondering that. But if you do not know who I am, do not care about my YouTube videos, you can feel free to skip this part. I will put chapters in the video so you can skip ahead to the more interesting part of the video. But if you do care about where I have been, I just wanted to give a little explanation. So first thing I want to say is that I do not think I'm going to be coming back to YouTube and posting like every single week the way that I used to. I just need to be realistic for myself and my schedule, and I don't want to commit to doing something that I definitely cannot commit to, because posting YouTube videos takes a lot of time. Before I started posting YouTube videos, I don't think I really understood the amount of time that goes into making one single video, and that also applies for really simple videos. At least in my case, I'm not very fast at editing videos. So even for like a very simple sit-down video where I'm just talking to the camera, which is most of my videos, it still takes me like 10 hours to edit each video. So that's a lot of time, and just with where I am in my life right now, I don't think that I have that time every single week. In fact, I think that I'm gonna struggle to find that time to post like a single video, so I just need to be realistic with myself. And I don't think that committing time to doing a YouTube video every week right now makes sense for me, because in the limited free time that I do have, I want to be spending that time knitting as opposed to filming YouTube videos about knitting. This is something that I noticed a couple of years ago when I was posting YouTube videos a lot more frequently. I was very, very committed to posting a video every single week, and there were definitely a lot of weeks where that didn't happen. There were a lot of times when I was like traveling or on vacation and stuff, and I was not able to make a video. But in the times when I was able to make a video, I feel like I spent so much time filming and editing and just working on the video itself or the content itself, and I felt like I was running out of time to knit. Like I was spending half of my week already editing my YouTube video to the point where I didn't feel like I had enough time to actually knit and work on projects. And obviously my YouTube videos and my content that I make is about my knitting, so it doesn't make sense to be filming YouTube videos if there's nothing to talk about. So I hope that wasn't like a ridiculously long-winded explanation. It probably was, but all that to say that I feel like filming YouTube videos right now is not my top priority. That doesn't mean that I'm never gonna come back to this channel. I hope that I can post YouTube videos a few times this year at the very least, because I do want to continue this channel being alive. It's just that I don't think I can commit to doing regular YouTube videos the way I used to. So I am happy to be back. I'm happy to be filming a video for the first time in about a year. It's really exciting, but I hope that is, you know, an understandable explanation for why I haven't been posting as much on here. And I do still want to, this year, post more. I want to be more involved in the knitting community this year, because last year I feel like was kind of like a low point for me in terms of the amount of knitting that I was doing and sharing with you guys. So I am excited to be back and to be posting, but I just want to let you guys know kind of what to expect from me going forward. So with that out of the way, let's get into the concept for today's video. I wanted to film a video inspired by Cozy Books and Knits because I watched her post a similar video where she talked about her unfinished objects from 2024. I am going to be doing that same video format where I'm going to be talking about all of the objects I did not finish in 2024 and why, and then what I want to do with them in terms of frogging them or finishing them. I'm also going to include the few finished objects that I had in 2024 in this video, because I feel like I missed out on the wave of making those what I made last year videos, and honestly I don't think I could have participated anyways because I literally only have 3 FOs, but I still wanted to show you guys these FOs because I am proud of them and I wanted to talk about them briefly. Also, I just wanted to talk quickly about why I didn't knit very much last year. So if you have been following me for a while, I was a lot more productive in the past couple of years. Like in 2022 and 2023, I was knitting a lot more. I was very prolific, at least by my own standards, I feel like I was pretty prolific, maybe compared to some other people, especially people who are posting their YouTube videos talking about what they made in a year. I was not very prolific compared to them. But by my own standards, you know, I was making like almost one project every month, and for me, that is like a good output. But this past year, I didn't really make too much. I feel like I just kind of like leaned away from the knitting and the knitting community a little bit, and I think I am in some ways sad that that happened, but at the same time, I don't think it's the end of the world. I think that for me personally, knitting is kind of like a cyclical hobby, and there will be moments where I'm not knitting as often, I'm not doing as much, and I'll always come back to it. And I feel like there's other hobbies in my life that are like that. I think reading and running are two examples of hobbies that I will sometimes go through phases where I'm doing a lot more, I'm doing a lot less. And last year for me, it was just a little bit less of a knitting year. I had a lot of other stuff going on last year. I got a promotion at work, so I was spending a lot of time working, especially like in the early part of the year. And then I also ran a half marathon, so that was a lot of time spent training for it. And then later in the year, I just feel like I was a little bit more focused on like my social life and other things that were not knitting. So I don't feel like I need to give you guys an explanation per se, but that is the explanation that I am, you know, telling myself as well. I feel like I'm trying to not feel guilty for the fact that I didn't knit for almost all of last year, because it is what it is. It's okay, I'm back to knitting now, and I don't need to hold myself to a certain standard of like constantly producing an output. Yeah, so honestly I was very happy with how the last year went in terms of my life, but I feel like one of the few areas where I wasn't as happy was my knitting business. And it sounds funny because I actually did put out my first ever garment pattern last year, which was a heartless top, so that was a huge success for me. But I think just like my lack of activity in my own knitting, in my own creating things, I was a little bit disappointed in. So I'm hoping to change that this year. Anyways, I am rambling so much, so I'm gonna get into my FOs from last year. The first FO I have is something that I do a lot of years around Christmas, is I will cast on a pair of socks. And I think this is a little bit of a trend for me, just because whenever I'm home for Christmas, I usually like to knit something. I have a lot of downtime, and it's always fun to start something new. So I feel like a pair of socks is always just a very easy project to start on when I'm traveling. I can just bring or buy a skein of yarn and very easily start a pair of socks. So the socks that I made last year around the holidays, so starting around like Christmas 2023 and then going into the new year, were the embossed leaves socks. So I was looking for a pattern to make that had some sort of leaf motif, because I had this very pretty green yarn from Arcane Fiberworks, and my mom offered me this book that had the embossed leaves pattern. This was such a fun knit. I feel like this was just very meditative. Anytime I make socks, even socks with like a little bit more of a complex pattern, because this one does have a little bit more going on, I still find them very fun, very meditative. And this pattern as well, I actually think was not as complex as it looks. It's very much like after you do a few repeats, you're able to kind of get the pattern down, and then you can kind of do it without looking at the pattern. So I'm really happy with how these came out. I actually had to dig them out of my laundry for this video because I do actually wear them pretty frequently, which I think is always a sign of success. And I'm happy with how they came out. Like I'm such a sock knitter. I love making socks, and I feel like I'm pretty much always happy with how my socks come out. Like there was one pair of socks where I really did struggle with fit issues and things. If you guys remember, it was my midsummer dancer socks from a couple of years ago. But aside from that, I feel like socks are always a very like mindless and chill knit for me. So these were really fun. Second project that I made was my heartless top. This is the second heartless top that I made. The first one that I made is a like darker red, and I wanted to make a second one so I could kind of iron out some of the kicks with the pattern, as well as having some more pictures of a different heartless top sample. And I'm really happy with how this one came out. I think that if anything, I am a little bit less happy with this heartless top versus my other one. This one I made a little bit more cropped, and I just feel like it's a little bit less wearable. I think actually the other heartless top that I made had a perfect length, like it was just absolutely perfect in every way. And I wanted to do something a little bit different with the second one, but I think I just made it more cropped than I wanted it to be, and I haven't really worn it out as much as I hoped that I would. But, you know, I am happy with how it came out. If anything, maybe I can go back and add a little bit of length to it, or maybe I can like give it away to a friend or something, because I just haven't worn it as much as I hoped that I would, especially I guess given the fact that it's my second Heartless top and I have another one that I wear way more often. Yeah, but Heartless top pattern has been available for a few months at this point, and I will link it in the description of the video. I'm very proud of it. I'm very, very proud of myself for getting that pattern out, even though it did take me quite a while. But I will definitely link that below if you guys are interested in it. My last FO, which is funny because I finished this in the spring, so I really did not have any FOs for like the majority of the year. It is the muscle burrow hat. This is just a really fun and simple hat pattern. Basically how this pattern works is you just make a long tube, and then it has increases / decreases on the top and the bottom, and then you can fold it together so it makes like a double layered hat. You can also make it so that it has a fold over brim, which I did, and it's just like a very easy meditative knit. There's literally no pearls, so it's very, very chill. And I made this one in Arcane Fiberworks yarn as well. But yeah, this was just my last FO. It was very chill, very fun. I think that like anytime I'm in a knitting slump in the future, I might make another one of these because it's just so chill and easy. It's a good gift if you want to like make a little one skein present for a friend, and you know, it's fun. So that wraps up the FOs, and I hope that you guys are still with me as we're going into the UFOs, because I think this is an actually much more interesting portion of the video. I've got a giant pile of projects in front of me because I had so many UFOs in 2024. I just don't know, I felt like every single project that I cast on in 2024 when I was sort of trying to get out of my knitting slump did not work. And to be fair, for some of these projects I was being a little ambitious and trying to like design stuff or do something different. So let's go through these projects. I'm gonna start off with one that I think is a little bit more fun because it actually has some hope being finished, and then we'll get into some of the drearier or more hopeless pieces. That sounds so depressing, but yeah, let's get into it. My first UFO was so close to being an FO, and it is the Florence Polo by Beck Penner. As you can see, this is so close to being done. Basically, all I have left is that I have to finish this sleeve, which I have just barely started. And then the only other thing I have to do is that I did not actually bind off the collar yet because I was being lazy and I didn't want to do the Italian bind off. So I'm gonna have to go back and do that. But the problem with this one is that I ran out of yarn. I actually just realized that I did make a swatch for this one, so I do have a little bit more yarn that I can draw on, but I don't think it's gonna be quite enough for me to actually finish the sleeve. So something that I've been meaning to do, and the reason that I kind of put this project aside initially is that I wanted to try and crop the bottom of this top. Because I felt like, so I made the top, this top is made from the bottom up. I made it a little bit less cropped than the pattern called for because for whatever reason, I thought I would want a longer top. And you know, maybe I would have wanted it a little bit longer than the pattern called for, but in general, I am kind of more of a cropped top girly. So I don't really know what I was thinking. I tried it on and I do think that it is just a little bit too long. And so it makes sense to me that instead of buying another skein of yarn, I should try and just take yarn from the bottom of the top and add that to the sleeve instead. So that was my initial plan. The thing is, like I said, this is knit from the bottom up, so I am gonna have to do surgery on this. What I'm thinking I'm gonna do is I'm going to go ahead and just like make a cut along the bottom, rip out an inch or two of the bottom, and then I'll have like a new piece that I make for the bottom that I'll graft together with the existing piece. So it is going to just be a little bit more of a surgery that I'm going to have to take some time to work on, and that's the reason that I set it aside and I never came back to it. I was just like, I don't want to deal with this right now, and I never really had an afternoon or a night where I sat down and said, let's do this. So I do want to come back to this one. I think that like this is going to be the next thing that I work on right now because I have been knitting a little bit more. I've gotten out of my knitting slump, I think, knock on wood. But yeah, this one does have hope. I am going to finish this one. I'm not going to frog it. And I'm gonna try to hold myself accountable to actually finishing this one because I really do want to. Up next, we have a project that I started on and I really did not get very far into. It is another pair of socks because, as you guys know, I really like making socks. It is the Hamatemis socks, I think is how you say it. I keep forgetting how you actually say the name. I tried to search it on Ravelry earlier and I was like, Patomenis socks. Pomonymous socks. I really don't know which one it is. But I'll put a picture of the pattern on the screen. Essentially, it's just like a very cool twisted rib kind of sock pattern that looks like fish scales or mermaid scales. And I think it's the coolest pattern ever. And as like an avid sock knitter, this is like a very popular pattern on Ravelry, and I feel like a pretty famous pattern. So I just wanted to knit it. And I had this yarn. It doesn't have a label. It's from like years ago that I think my mom or I got at like a fiber festival. I have no idea where it's from, to be honest, but it's really pretty hand-dyed yarn with like different shades of blue. And I thought it would be perfect for it. However, I started making it. As you can see, I did not get very far, and I just felt like the yarn was too stripy and you couldn't really see the design. It wasn't like the most visible. So what I wanted to do with this one is I wanted to use dye. I got some Rit dye and see if I could like even out the tone of the yarn a little bit. And I wanted to just test like maybe this little amount of the sock that I'd done and try dyeing it and see if this would even it out a bit. Now, to be honest, I don't really know if this is going to work. I tried to get like a darker blue so that it would even out the tone of this blue a little bit, and it would kind of just like wash over the entire thing with a wash of darker blue, but I don't know if it's going to work. And again, this is one of those projects that I knew it was going to take a little bit of time to actually fix the problem with the project, so I just put it aside and I never picked it up again. And whether I want to frog or finish this one, I do think I want to try the whole dyeing thing. I just don't know if it's going to work, and I feel like if it doesn't work, I'm gonna have lost motivation to like get another color dye or anything. So maybe I should just give up if it doesn't work and try a different sock. I think my struggle with like variegated sock yarns, which I do have a few of them and I think they're very pretty, but I just feel like I always need to pick out some like sock pattern that is going to make the yarn shine. It either has to be like a super plain sock pattern or something where it's going to kind of like break up the yarn so it's not going to pool. I just feel like the options for variegated sock yarn are much more limited versus a lot of the socks that I like to make are kind of like more complex, more fancy socks. So I always have a bit of trouble picking up patterns for variegated sock yarns. All right, moving on to the next UFO. I'm really still sad about this one. I wish that I could have finished it, but it doesn't look like much right now. It is the Tied and True tank pattern by Tamara Starcross Knits, and I was supposed to test knit this one, so this start of the top is me trying to test knit it. I was doing it in this black mohair, and I love this design. I think it is absolutely gorgeous. As you guys can probably tell from the fact that this piece is not finished, I did not complete the test, which I feel really terrible about. Tamara was very cool about it. She was, you know, very understanding, but reality is, at the time of the test knit, which was in the spring, I just really did not have the bandwidth to do it, and I really probably should not have taken it on in the first place. I should have known that I wasn't going to be able to complete it. I had a lot of things going on, mainly being my half marathon training, like I talked about, took up a lot of time. It took up many hours in the week, and then I also was going for my promotion at that time. So I was super busy at work. I was actually like working overtime, which is a little bit rare in the software engineering industry, at least at my company. And I just didn't have the time to finish it. So unfortunately I had to drop out. That is on top of the fact that I also was kind of struggling with the pattern because I think my gauge was off and it was causing the numbers that were given in the pattern to just be like completely off, to the point where I didn't really know how I was going to go forward with the test knit, because my gauge was like so far off, even though I did a gauge swatch. I think it was like the row gauge was just really far off. So unfortunately I was not able to complete this one during the test knit period, and I also am not sure if I'm going to be able to complete it just as a project given my gauge issues. Like I don't have an idea of a path forward. So I think it's a little bit hard for me to continue on this one. So I think I'm gonna frog this one, which is really sad. I would really like to make this pattern at some point, but maybe I'll need to make just like the normal version that's not mohair. Yeah, I'm not sure what I'm gonna do instead of this with this yarn. Honestly, I don't even really like working with just mohair, so I'll have to figure out what else I can make. Maybe I'll just suffer through it and make like a simple tank top or something. But yeah, unfortunately I don't think I can continue with this one, so this one's gonna be a frog. Okay, I promise we're on the last UFO. This one is a design that I'm hoping to complete and publish at some point, but it's very much in beginning stages right now. So I was trying to make a pair of cardigan themed socks. Cardigan being the Taylor Swift song. And when I say cardigan, I'm referring to the actual cardigan merch that Taylor Swift has. I have one right here, but you're not really able to see it too well on screen, so I'll put a picture of it as well. But this is sort of like the cardigan that I'm trying to model the socks off of. I actually started on these socks before Taylor Swift's store put out actual cardigan themed socks, but to be honest, I don't know if I love their design. I feel like it's just like super basic cables and it doesn't really look like the original cardigan, which has a little more variety in the cables going on. But so, I was trying to make socks that looked similar to the actual cardigan, and what I've realized now that I've gotten like not super far on the sock is that I don't think I like the color. I got this color, this sort of like more grayish cream color, to be the main color of the cardigan socks. But I feel like the actual color of the cardigan, let me show you guys comparing these two. The actual color of the cardigan is basically white. It's like maybe a little bit off-white, like a little more cream, but it's basically white, and I just decided this doesn't look good. It looks more like a gray than like a white. So I do want to also pick this one back up and complete it. Obviously, I'm not super far anyways, so there's like not much to pull out here, but I do think I'm gonna frog this one and hopefully just use some like plain white yarn and try to complete this design because I think it'd be cool. I think it'd be really fun to make like cardigan themed socks, and it's very up my alley as a huge Taylor Swift fan. That is it for my frogger finish slash all of the things that I knit in 2024. Thank you guys so much for watching. I really appreciate the support, especially if you have been here for a while and have been wondering where I've been. I appreciate you watching my videos still. I know it's been a very long time. And if you're new here, I would really appreciate if you subscribe to me as well. Like I said, I'm not going to have a very regular posting schedule on here, but I will still post every once in a while. I also post shorts. I post a lot on Instagram if you want to check me out over there. That's kind of the main place I'm active, if I'm being honest, so you're welcome to check that out instead if you prefer. Thanks so much for watching. I really appreciate you guys, and I will see you sometime soon. Bye.